Shalom. Kol Halal Yahweh Bahasham Yahushai Bahasham Rakaha Kwadash. Double honors unto the apostles, double honors unto the elder bishops. Salutations to all my fellow laborers doing this work in truth and sincerity, risking their lives and their freedom to do so now more so than ever. The would-be judges, the 144,000, right? The tabernacle of David, who are to be the judges here on earth. 12,000 men from each of the 12 tribes of Israel, who primarily make up the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. All right. And the scattered elect that are scattered around the four corners of the earth, that be like unto the speckled bird, the Israelite foreigners among the heathen nations that have the appearance of the heathen nations. This is not a black only thing. For the Lord is coming to gather up Israel. Then he will place his judges to institute the law on earth as it is in heaven, just like the Lord's Prayer says, on earth as it is in heaven. The laws will be enforced by the tabernacle of David, Amos 9 and 11. And to the few Akwaf, the sisters that are listening and learning, to you I say Shalom. This is your brother Malcolm from the branch of the Great Millstone here in Chicago, coming at you another lesson in truth. And watched quite a few videos today. I had a lot of free time, so I watched a lot of videos, and so I'm gonna profile these two. I saved quite a few that, Lord's will, I will come back to and and do a commentary and bring out the scriptures. But let me first read the copyright disclaimer, then some scriptures, and we'll get this thing going. This is the copyright disclaimer. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is permitted by the copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. All right, so this is Myron from what's the show Fresh and Fit. And first scripture I'm gonna go to the book of Habakkuk, because we're in that revealing time. Everybody's talking about this awakening and the noticing and all that stuff. Like, people are noticing that America's politicians and America has been controlled by the Israelis or the J-ish ever since Jekyll Island, ever since the Federal Reserve. All right. They control the banking. They control so behind closed doors, you're gonna do what the people who control your money suggest you do. So, but this is the book of Habakkuk, and all this was to come to pass. They can't hide themselves anymore. This is Habakkuk 2 and 1, and it reads, "And I will stand upon my watch and set me upon the tower, and will watch to see what he will say unto me. And what shall I answer when I am reproved? And Yahweh answered me and said, Write the vision and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry." And now those times are here. Right? We're on the verge of the collapse. We're on the MOTB, the digital system, is being forced around the world. I think something like 84 million people in Vietnam lost their bank accounts or something because they went digital, and the people are refusing to do it. And they're also having like a quiet, not going to work, not doing anything to support the system in Italy right now too. So Europe is going digital, and the people are resisting it. But they're going to implement this plan worldwide. All right. And once they do that, it's a wrap. So we're really, really close, people. And America's not that far behind. Okay, the infrastructure for the MOTB is already set up here in America. All right, all we need is the activities. Meanwhile, while this awakening is happening, there's also an awakening to who the problem is. All right, I was walking under a viaduct in a wealthy upscale neighborhood, and someone wrote on the wall, "The Jays are the problem." Huge. I was like, wow, let me see if I still have that. I may have deleted it once because I had to use. I used it in a post. But let me see if I still have it. Yeah, I got rid of that. Yeah, after I used it, I got rid of it. But now we're gonna hear the shameful spewing upon Esau's glory, because that's what's happening now, because they're being called out for their crooked, unfair, bias, and racist policy. Right? So this is Habakkuk 2:16. I will start at 15. Woe unto him that giveth his neighbor drink, and puttest thy bottle to him, and makest him drunk also, that thou mayest look upon their nakedness. All right? So you've done all these horrific things to people and fooled people using pseudoscience, false science, lies, and scams. And now the people are raising up and speaking out against you. Habakkuk 2:16. Thou art filled with shameful glory, oh, your shameful, murderous, thieving, colonial history of rape, robbery, and murder, which you're still doing. All right? It says, thou art filled with shameful glory. Drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered. And the cup of Yahweh's right hand shall be turned unto thee, and shameful spewing shall be upon thy glory. And that's so the shameful spewing is upon your glory, and Yahweh is coming to get you. And there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. You can keep calling them UFOs and UAPs, which if you want. Those are the chariots of Israel, and the Lord is leading that heavenly armada back here to establish heaven here on earth and set up the tabernacle of David. All right, which is not consists of the Israelis. Okay, they ain't it. So without any further ado, let's let Myron do what he does best.
Clad censorship regime that Israel had. What October 7th basically did, though, was it blew the lid on the ironclad censorship regime that Israel had. Because prior to October 7th, as I discussed before, if you talked about this topic, you were immediately targeted, immediately removed, immediately demonetized, immediately attacked, and they got you up out of there right away. Now,
yep, they cut a lot of my videos.
Israel is starting to refocus its strategy on media. This is why they're paying influencers $7,000 per post. This is why your Twitter timeline has changed to pro-Israel all of a sudden. This is why they're starting to censor people on certain platforms. This is a group of people that have been ostracized from many different societies, expelled from many different societies, and persecuted from many different societies for thousands of years. This is why this international cabal works together to protect the interests of Israel. Now, let's get into October 7th, okay? This was the beginning of the Great Awakening. Okay, October 7th. I'm going to describe the social media landscape prior to...
Correction, the Great Awakening happened in 2007, right? When the apostles and elders of Great Millstone came onto the YouTube, and many of the tribes began to wake up. First starting with the Southern Kingdom, and then shortly thereafter, the Northern Kingdom.
It's October 7th, and I'm going to describe it after, because this is very important for you guys to understand. Prior to October 7th, if you uttered Zionism, if you uttered the state of Israel, and you talked about, them boys, any of this stuff, it was probably going to be one of the fastest ways for you to get banned. Okay? Now, we have to be honest, and I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you guys who was running social media platforms at the time. The head of YouTube was Susan Wojcicki. The founders of Google, Sergey Brin, who she was very close with, by the way. The head of Meta and Facebook and Instagram, Mark Zuckerberg. Head of Instagram, Adam Masari. The reality is, a lot of these social media companies were run by Zionists. It is what it is, okay? And especially on YouTube, posting anything that talked about anything critical of Israel, since so few people did it, you would be put under a magnifying glass and it'd be like whack-a-mole. You say something, bam, they hit you immediately. You're getting a strike, you're getting your channel terminated, ADL's writing a hit piece on you, SPLC's writing a hit piece on you, Media Matters is writing a hit piece on you. If you come out and talked about any of this stuff prior to October 7th, you were immediately put on a list and they would do everything in their power to cancel you and destroy you. Whether it's by shadow banning you, demonetizing you, or just outright nuking your channel, that's what it was, okay? That was the landscape on all of social media on this topic. And if you did Google dancing or art students, or 9/11, or USS Liberty, or JFK, nuclear proliferation, or NUMEC, it was very hard to get answers. That all changed after October 7th. As you guys know, Hamas invaded on October 7th with Operation Al-Aqsa Flood. They invaded for a bunch of different geopolitical reasons that I've covered many times on this channel, right? But the occupation The Abraham Accords, them building the temple and destroying the Al-Aqsa Mosque. That's why the operation was called Operation Al-Aqsa Flood. Those were some of the reasons they invaded and attacked. 1,200 people were tragically killed on that day. Now, when it comes to who killed them, this is where dispute comes. We know 400 of those individuals were enemy combatants and members of the IDF, right? And we also know that the Hannibal Directive was activated on that day, according to Yoav Gallant, the defense minister, right? So the Hannibal Directive is basically a directive where the Israelis are allowed to basically kill other Israelis for fear of them being captured and brought back to Gaza to be used in hostage negotiations later on. To this day, no one really knows how many were killed by Hamas versus how many were killed by the IDF. No one really knows. Now, if you talk to pro-Israel people, they'll tell you, oh, Hamas killed everybody. That's simply not true, because a lot of the people that were killed in a manner where it would be impossible for Hamas to do so, because they don't have Hellfire missiles and Apache helicopters, right? They don't have the capabilities to murder some of these individuals the way that they were murdered. But that's a whole other discussion. But the point you need to know, and the takeaway that you need to know from this, is that October 7th was significant because Hamas invaded, a lot of people were killed, and this started the conflict that we're currently still seeing now 2 years later. Now, when October 7th happened, what ended up happening was everyone got behind the Israelis. The entire Western world got behind them. People were saying Israel has the right to defend itself. Do you condemn Hamas, as Piers Morgan was saying all over the place? And at that point, they could do no wrong, right? Everyone felt sorry for them. But what quickly proceeded after really went to go ahead and show what the Israelis have been doing forever. The mask came off. And what we saw was the systemic bombing and destruction and murdering of tens of thousands of people. And when this is all said and done and the smoke clears, it's probably going to be hundreds of thousands of people.
Yep.
As of the date of the recording of this stream and this broadcast, roughly 60,000 plus have been murdered by the Israelis. The Israelis estimate somewhere between 20 to 30,000 of them were Hamas. Israeli internal documents have estimated that roughly 80% of the people that were killed were innocent people, right? And it's going to probably be a lot more because a lot of these people were pulverized when they were attacked and bombed. A lot of these people are buried in the rubble. Something like 90% of Gaza's infrastructure has been destroyed. The starvation and all the other people dying from disease, malnutrition, different ways that they died. So when this is all said and done, it's going to be hundreds of thousands dead. Now, this led the international community to heavily condemn Israel, rightfully so. This led to several genocide experts and historians to say, yeah, this is absolutely a genocide, while the Israeli government denies it, right? And the Hezbollah police, as I call them, also deny it, right? Pro-Israel people say that it wasn't a genocide. This is them defending themselves. They say other ridiculous comments like the IDF is the most moral army in the world. We have the best ratio, blah, blah, blah. Absolutely nuts. But that's where we are. They can deny genocide that occurred in 4K. Now, the reason why Israel is so disliked right now is because, unlike other conflicts that Israel's been involved in, we have the internet. And not only do we have the internet, we have X, we have Rumble, and we have other platforms that aren't so controlled by the Zionist lobby and pro-censorship. And what ended up happening was people saw these images of children getting bombed. People saw these images of children starving. People saw these images.
Pay close attention, all right? He's really getting ready to drop a golden nugget. They can be used even by the prophets, right? When people come with that Israeli fake J argument.
Of people being dismembered by explosives. People saw these images of people being shot by the IDF while peacefully protesting. And the world quickly started to turn against Israel. Most importantly, the United States.
I can say one name right now if you're in tune with things that are going on. Nick Fuentes. The MAGA movement is completely divided. Nick Fuentes.
Okay? You have people on the left side of the camp saying this is a genocidal apartheid ethno-state that is killing people. So they're protesting from a humanitarian perspective. You have people on the right that are protesting from a humanitarian perspective, but also from a nationalistic perspective. We are occupied by a foreign nation that is conducting a genocide that, subverts our government and utilizes our power and our resources to cover for themselves as they commit atrocities in our name.
So that's the awakening he's talking about. Americans have come to the understanding that the Israelis are calling the show over our elected officials, over the government here in Babylon. And they don't like it. They don't like it all. They see it. A lot, there were murmurings of it. If you said it, like he said, you got canceled. But now the general public sees it. All right. Even, Regular two-third ninjas are putting up videos talking about it now.
And we fund it, right? But the bottom line is this. Both people on the far left and on the far right are coming together and understanding that Israeli influence in our government is a serious problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also it's interesting when you take someone like a Hassan Piker or a Kyle Kalinske, far leftist, I would say, damn near socialist, and they're agreeing.
Kyle Kalinske shows are pretty good.
With people like me, some of you guys might consider me more on the far alt-right, right? So if you got people from completely different political spectrums agreeing on this topic,
yep.
I think it's safe to say that it's a problem, right? I think it's fair to say.
Now the blank outs are he's ish, the J-ish word. So it was really wise of him to do that.
Now, what October 7th,
just like it said under the viaduct, it is a J-ish problem. Was wrote on that wall, that graffiti. I'm gonna check tomorrow to see if it's still there when I'm in that wealthy upscale neighborhood.
Basically did though, was it blew the lid on the ironclad censorship regime that Israel had. Because prior to October 7th, as I discussed before, if you talked about this topic, you were immediately targeted, immediately removed, immediately demonetized, immediately.
Remember if you said something against COVID? And now all the evidence and the truth has come out about that. The whole people getting put on blast for that fraud, for that lie.
Attack or whatever it may be, and they got you up out of there right away before your ideas could spread, right? But after October 7th, with the explosion of platforms like X, Elon Musk procuring it, Rumble, and also TikTok, they couldn't censor everybody. People started making videos on TikTok. TikTok, as you guys know, as much as I hate that platform, it's really good for organic growth. And
I'm right there
it's
with
left
them.
Dominated. And we all know how the left...
I hate TikTok, but it is left dominated. And guess what? Most of the truth that comes out comes from the left these days. Real talk. And the right, or the powers that be, they tried to say, they would come after people for disinformation, but the truth of the matter is, the most of the disinformation is coming from the authorities themselves. That's where the real disinformation is coming from. Matter of fact, if you're getting it from the internet, from groups of people from different walks of life and different and with different stances, and they're all saying the same thing, and all of a sudden the government comes out and says something completely different, more likely than not, the group of people are speaking the truth, and that's kind of been found to be truth. This is Jeremiah 49:7. Concerning Edom, thus saith Yahweh of hosts, is wisdom no more in Teman? Is counsel perished from the prudent? Is their wisdom vanished? Because as he's going to say, they would do one thing, but then they will reveal themselves in another way. And that's why it's shameful spewing on them, and they're so exposed right now. People are hip, completely awakened to the bullshit.
It's about Israel at this point. So people were posting pro-Palestine content. People were posting from the river to the sea. They were posting images of kids getting blown up. And the youth started to get radicalized and red-pilled on what is going on in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Conversely, on Twitter, which is a more of a pro-right-wing app,
which the men of the Great Millstone have been talking about for decades now. All right, we're about to go into 2026. The truth hit the airwaves in 2007. We're pushing 20 years now, 2 decades of Great Millstone on the internet. I mean, because they were around doing the work before that, the apostles and the elder bishops. But since the YouTube era, almost 20 years now, that this truth has been going out, and just now. The people, are really starting to say what the Israelites have been saying all along.
People were talking about what was going on and posting images of the kids getting blown up and killed, right? So in their own way, young people on the left were on TikTok, and there's some conservatives obviously that use TikTok as well. And then young people on the right who use Twitter were seeing what the hell is going on, and they came to the same conclusion. Our support of Israel is unacceptable. They're killing people in our name. We're giving them a massive amount of support. And this is unacceptable. And people got red pill on this topic, right? And it was too much for the ADL to handle. It was so bad that Jonathan Greenblatt had to go to Israel and say, look, we got a TikTok problem. We need to do something about TikTok. Now, let me explain to you guys the power. Anyone that tries to sit there and tell you that Israel doesn't run this country, you look them in the eye and you tell them, shut up. And I'm going to give you guys a talking point that you can go ahead and use.
Exactly.
And I haven't seen many people point this out. For you guys to understand this, we need to go back to 2020.
Pay attention.
In August of 2020, there was talks of banning TikTok. As you guys know, after the pandemic, people were stuck in their homes. TikTok exploded in popularity. Everyone and their mom was using it. But the United States government looked at it as a problem because they called it Chinese spyware. So for national security reasons, they wanted to get rid of it. And this is under the Donald Trump administration, by the way. There was talks about banning it, getting rid of it for national security reasons. Fine.
Yeah, because all the myocarditis and the injuries were being shown. Same way all the death and destruction, murder, rape of men, women, and children in Gaza is being shown. That was what was happening back then, so they wanted to shut down TikTok. You know, all the collapsing of youths, of teenagers and young athletes dying of heart attacks and myocarditis, etc., from a certain medical aid that they all took, not the supposed virus that they all supposedly had, but the cure did more damage than the virus. That's why they wanted to shut down TikTok.
Guess what? Never actually happened, right? Fast forward to 2023, 2024, as the letter to America is blowing up on TikTok, as From the River to the Sea trends, as the exposure of AIPAC lobbying our politicians explodes in popularity on TikTok, as progressive political commentators are criticizing Israel on TikTok, and Zionist lobbies get together and say, this is a problem. We need to get rid of this. Not only did they say that we need to get rid of this, the Heritage Foundation, which we're going to talk about them as well here, who are cucking themselves as we speak, wrote out something called Project Esther. This strategy was written before Trump came into office, and in it outlined combating the anti-Semitism in the United States. They talked about TikTok on there a little bit. And Jonathan Greenblatt talked about it as well. Now, when Trump came into office, right, what did he do? He was in a rock and a hard place because TikTok was responsible for him getting elected. As you guys know, Charlie Kirk is big on TikTok, one of the few conservatives that was able to stay on there without getting banned. And Trump used it quite a bit for his campaigning. Trump heavily relied upon social media to get elected, while Kamala Harris relied upon conventional advertising with, mainstream celebrities, etc., that really don't have influence. They're famous, but they don't have influence. Meanwhile, Trump relied upon influencers to build said influence. And he won. So Trump had a vested interest in keeping TikTok open, and also a lot of Americans use it for business, right? So to shut it down simply because of Israel, it doesn't really look too good. So what they ended up doing is, when Trump got in, it got shut down for 24 hours, and then it got reactivated. And when it got reactivated, you couldn't put watermelon emojis, you couldn't say AIPAC, you couldn't say From the River to the Sea, certain content was being suppressed, etc. But that wasn't good enough. That wasn't good enough. They said, we need to get someone to buy this thing so that we can have more control over it. An American to buy it, right? So what ended up happening was they kind of had like something close to like a continuing resolution where they were, okay, look, we're going to defer it. We're going to, buy them a little bit more time, but we need someone to go ahead and buy this and, put some American interest in it, right? American. So fast forward, your boy Larry Ellison purchases TikTok, and he procures, I think, Paramount and some other big media companies at the same time. Now, for those of you that don't know who Larry Ellison is, I'll make it simple. He's a Zionist who supports the IDF, okay? He procures TikTok, and what happens? The censorship once again comes back. It's even more censored now when it comes to pro-Palestine stuff. So why am I telling you all this? I'm telling you this so that you guys understand. When it came to American national security and avoiding Chinese spying, we didn't get rid of TikTok. But when it came to the Zionist lobby saying we need to get rid of TikTok because we don't like what they're saying about Israel, they got rid of TikTok.
Wow.
Let that sink in.
Let it sink in.
American national security in 2020 came second to the pressure and power and influence of the Zionist lobby in 2025.
So, like he said, if anybody tells you that the Israelis are not controlling America, tell them to shut the fuck up. You clearly are in support of the wickedness, or you just really that stupid. Next video. More shameful spewing on their glory, man. They put laws in position to further their oppression. Matter of fact, let's get that. Psalms 94 and 20. And it reads, shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee, which frameth mischief by law? So to try and protect what they were doing, they just went and had, one of the J's procure a whole bunch of media companies, and TikTok happened to be one of them. And then they were able to enforce it. So like he said, when it came to American national security, TikTok marched forward. But when it came to protecting the fragile ego of the manipulation and murder that was coming from a particular small country, they shut that shit down. So here we go with your man CJ's perspective.
Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, the epitome of a DEI hire. But is that true? And I thought what I'd do for this video is compare the last 4 Supreme Court justices to be seated. That's Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett. These are all Trump nominees. And this is Ketanji Brown Jackson, who is nominated by Joe Biden. And I know a lot of people hate AI, but I love it for unbiased comparisons on multiple variables. And so to start with, we're going to go to Elon Musk's Grok, and I'm going to ask it, can you give me a side-by-side comparison of all the recent Supreme Court justices and their qualifications before being named to the bench? Let's compare the resumes of Ketanji Brown Jackson, Amy Coney Barrett, Brett Kavanaugh, and Neil Gorsuch. I'd like a detailed breakdown of their previous education, clerkships, and experience as both a lawyer and judge before being named to the bench. If possible, rank them 1 through 4 at the end and include a score of 100 for each. 100 being the most qualified candidate ever, and 0 being wholly unqualified. And as you can see, there is my prompt, and here is its reply. It created this massive, long table here of all the information. And then down here at the end, it says that it's going to rank it 20% on education, 20% on clerkships, 30% on legal experience, and 30% on judicial experience. And as you can see down here at the bottom, under the ranking and scoring, it actually ranks Ketanji Brown Jackson first with a score of 92 out of 100. Then it ranks Brett Kavanaugh second with a score of 88 out of 100. If we scroll down here, you'll see that Neil Gorsuch takes third with a score of 86 out of 100. And last is Amy Coney Barrett with a score of 80 out of 100. And then just for good measure, I said, if you did this same analysis with all 9 Supreme Court justices at the time they were nominated, can you give me the same rankings and score? And here's how Grok ranked all 9 Supreme Court justices, with Sonia Sotomayor taking first with 94 out of 100. And Amy Coney Barrett isn't last anymore. That belongs to Clarence Thomas with 78 out of 100. So I'm sorry, conservatives, if you're looking for DEI hires that have been placed on the Supreme Court, this is your number 2 offender, and this is number 1.
As you more than likely know, this phrase DEI has been floating around and started to become a buzz term. And I call it a phrase and a term because, like the white supremacists like to do, they take something that has actual meaning, flip it, and turn it into something that they can use against any particular group that they don't like at the moment. But one of the craziest parts of this whole mess is when I hear white women complaining about the very thing that they've been the biggest beneficiaries of.
Kamala Harris was a
So, like he showed you the example of how the basically the Jake judges were more qualified on paper than the white ones. But then you have them, well, are you qualified to be a judge? These Edomites like Megan and some of that DEI crap, they've become a buzz term. Are you qualified to fly this plane? Or Charlie Kirk, are you qualified to do this surgery on me? And when you look at on paper, their qualifications are higher in most cases than their white constituents, so-called white, because there's no such thing as black or white. All right, so let's listen to this bitch Megan, and I can't stand this woman myself. I had a very wealthy client, and I used to have to suffer through listening to her podcast when we were working out, and she just thought the world of this woman, and I knew this woman was a racist piece of shit.
DEI hire, 100% for vice president. Karen Bass almost got the job. She's even dumber than Kamala. That's obvious. And then you've got 3 fire chiefs, like the top, the deputy, and the person who runs DEI at the LA Fire, who are apparently there because they have
fake ass
vaginas
hair,
and they like to share them with other women. I mean, honestly, like, I'm sorry that I am allowed to question your competency when it's very clear you did not get hired because of it.
You hear that?
When you yourself are touting all the firsts. Corinne Jean-Pierre's another one. She's in there touting.
So hold on, and because they love to use pseudoscience numbers and twist things. They create false statistics and they run with that shit, and then they use it. And that's a false science. It's a lie, fraudulent math to push their lies. This is 1 Timothy 6:20, and it reads, "O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust, avoiding profane and vain babblings and oppositions of science, falsely so called." All right, and then the science reveals that, well, generally the opposite of what they're saying, quite often.
Yeah, she's the first black lesbian, she sucks too. Like, stop touting these irrelevant characteristics as reasons we're supposed to celebrate you, and then try to hide behind them when you come under criticism for your incompetence.
I don't know what it is, but every time I see her, this is what I think about.
You need a little bit of seasoning. You ain't got no seasoning, man. You like a plain piece of chicken just on the thing, you pull it off, and then you serve the dish. You need some motherfucking seasoning, man.
But yeah. And it turns out that, as he's going to tell you, because I'm just going to fast forward a little bit, that the people who benefit the most from DEI were so-called white women. All right?
Let's take a look at a couple of articles. This one written by the Philadelphia Women's Network Connection on January 31st, 2025. Why DEI matters in America and who benefits the most. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, initiatives have become a major focal point in corporate America, educational institutions, and government programs. These initiatives aim to level the playing field for historically marginalized communities, ensuring fair treatment and equal opportunities. However, while DEI is designed to benefit all underrepresented groups, studies show that the primary beneficiaries have been white women.
Wow, you see that?
Studies show. In this blog, we'll explore why DEI is essential in America, how it contributes to economic and social progress, and why white women have seen the most significant gains from these programs. That's Exhibit A. Let's go see Exhibit B. This one's written by Stacey Brown. She's a NNPA senior national correspondent. If you don't know what the NNPA is, it's the National Newspaper Publishers Association, a trade association for black-owned newspapers. That's why it's important for me to do what I do, because we got to make sure we're getting the truth out there. When they keep spewing this propagandist ideals, we got to make sure we fighting back with the truth. That's why I love to do what I do. Let's get it. The DEI deception. White women benefit, black Americans blamed.
And there it is. They love to try and make Jake the face of the problem. They always show you some fat black woman with all her kids and don't show you the thousands of fat white women with all her kids and her baby daddies. That's on, that's on the welfare and the SNAP and the EBT and all the other stuff. It's called projection. But this is Luke 12:2. For there is nothing covered, there shall not be revealed, neither hid, there shall not be known. That shameful spewing on their glory. Let me see if I still have that projection definition in the receipts. Let me run through them real quick. Yep. And this is what Megan and these Edomites love to do. They love to project blame. All right. Here's the definition. Projection blaming is a defense mechanism where a person unconsciously, and so is, no, they very consciously do it, despitefully and hatefully. All right. A defense where a person unconsciously attributes their own unacceptable thoughts, feelings, or traits to another person to avoid acknowledging them in themselves. So they don't do this subconsciously. They do this very consciously and purposely. All right. To vilify Jacob. And they're angry because the truth is coming out. So with that, I hope this was edifying. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah, Quadash, Kwam, Yasharala, Abba, Babal.